Meeting is now being recorded.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our monthly EI Technical Assistance Call. And today we're going to talk about explaining rights and procedural safeguards. We're going to dive in a little bit about written procedures and some information that's discussed during office hours. There'll be updates on the statewide meeting, providing some logistics, and we're going to do some polling to get your thoughts on topics to help us form our upcoming agenda and meeting. QIO as well as unicorn updates and some additional reminders for our program. So I'm going to turn it over to Lenita, and she's going to talk about procedural safeguards.
Hello, everyone. We just wanted to give you a quick spring refresher on family rights and procedural safeguards today, especially to ensure that your service coordinators not only know what rights are, but that they're able to explain them properly to the family. Monty does discuss this during office hours and goes over parental rights, and you can see on your screen a screenshot of what is explained in the current bridge training for service coordinators around parental rights. So the opportunity for multidisciplinary evaluation and assessment, the development of the IFSP within 45 calendar days of referral, if eligible, the opportunity to receive appropriate early intervention services within 28 days from the date of consent, and so forth. So hopefully those are familiar to everyone when we're discussing rights. So moving on to procedural safeguards, which we often hear that there's confusion from service coordinators about procedural safeguards. It's really talking about when families must be informed of their rights and the distinct times during the process that they should be explained. So the actions that the service coordinator does in order to ensure parents receive their entitlements. So the procedural safeguards are really talking about prior written notice, informed parental consent, records, dispute resolution, and the pieces that go with those. So you can see those listed here on your screen, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail. I did want to point out under records that those include access to all of their information and documents, that their information is kept confidential, and the opt-out policy as it relates to sharing potential eligibility and protected information. So making sure that we have consent from families to share current IFSPs and other assessment results when we're sharing that with the receiving school district. So in terms of dispute resolution, there are state and local processes that we hope you're all aware of, and that families have a right to any one of these or all of them. So mediation, they have the right to file a state complaint or move directly to due process. And also that if a surrogate parent needs to be assigned, that they know about that. That's a rarity in our state. The way that our system is set up in Colorado, we don't often have a need for surrogate parents, but you do need to be aware of if that is the case, how to go about that. So if you have questions related to that, please contact Amanda Sutton and she can talk more about that. So just as a reminder, every community center board should have an identified contact person to support families with disputes, and that information should be provided to the parent by the service coordinator in writing. And there is a place on the back of the family rights brochure to provide contact information. So if you're giving families that, you can certainly put your CCB specific information on that. This is also a question that we ask service coordinators during office hours. So do you know what your local dispute resolution process is? And how and when do you provide it to the family? Service coordinators should also know who their contact person is. So often when they're asked during office hours, they have an idea of who that might be, but they're not 100% certain. So just make sure that that is clear within your CCB. There's also information on the EI Colorado website related to all the materials around procedural safeguards and dispute, and the formal dispute resolution form is there as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about prior written notice and when it's given. So the best way to remember when you have to provide prior written notice is any action that may result in a change. So some of those reasons are listed here on your screen. So post-referral screening, results of screening, evaluation and or assessment. If the parent does not want to go through with evaluation, when sharing with the family if the child is eligible or ineligible for early intervention, when holding an initial IFSP meeting, periodic reviews, annual reviews, transition conferences, and as I said, any action that may result in a change. So in terms of which prior written notice form to use, so there are two different prior written notice forms. So there's the consent for initial evaluation, which if you are having the evaluation on the same day as the IFSP meeting, that form meets the requirements for prior written notice. If you're having the IFSP meeting on a separate day from the evaluation, you're going to need to give prior written notice using the form labeled prior written notice that is most commonly used for prior written notice. So service coordinators must ensure that a family understands the procedural safeguards relevant to the current stage of the IFSP process. So initially we're going to go over all of the procedural safeguards, family rights, and then depending on where they are in the process, we need to go back and ensure that they understand their procedural safeguards for that given activity. So the new EI Fundamentals training that we are really excited to launch, hopefully this summer, has a module dedicated to parental rights and procedural safeguards. And throughout the training, participants will be regularly reminded of when these should happen when walking through the process. So that's an additional support that we'll have moving forward around parental rights and procedural safeguards. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back over to Bonnie.
Thanks, Lenita. We're going to now talk about the EI statewide meeting, and we're going to start off with a couple polling questions that we'd like to gather some information from you on.
So this is Wayla. I'm going to put up a couple of questions. The first one is a question about topics that you are interested in. And for this one, it should be coming up. You should be seeing it now. And it asks you to list your, mark the top 3 topics that you would like to find out information about. So if you could just put a check mark in the top 3 topics, And then you'll see over on the right-hand side there's a little scroll bar. And after you click your top 3 topics, you might actually want to scroll a little bit first to make sure you can see all of the topics. But then there's a little box where you can type in. It says essay, so don't be scared about that. It's not really an essay question, but just type in if there are any other topics or additional topics or related to those topics that are listed, something that you're especially interested in learning. So type that in, and I'll give you a minute or so to answer that question for the statewide meeting. In the meantime, we'll see if Monty has any jokes.
Well, actually I do. I forgot to introduce myself at the very beginning, so I'm going to do that. My name's Monica Joel. I got a name makeover because I decided it was too long, so I changed it, shortened it up to Joel. So just FYI in the future, if you get emails from Monica Joel, it's still me. I'm the same person.
Nice.
Good thing you remind us.
Nice joke.
Well, it's not a joke. How are they looking, Wayla? Are you getting responses?
Yeah, got some 19, so good. Let's see. In the chat, anybody need more time?
Good. All right.
So we have another question for you. I'm going to go back to the questions. All right. Another question that we have is about networking. And so for this question, the first one is just a true or false question. We want to know if networking is important to you at the statewide meeting. And then the next question, is it showing? No? Oh, looks like it's showing because I'm getting some completed surveys, right? It's not showing on Lanita's screen. It showed. Okay. It's showing? Okay, so it's true or false, and then the next question says, what, Ashley?
What do you wish to learn from others while networking?
Oh, okay. Sorry. So thank you. So if you can put what you want to learn from others, that would be great. We can maybe have some targeted discussion around those types of things. So thank you for that. Thank you, Lindsay, for letting us know it's showing there. And when you complete, if you can just click your, that it's complete, I think. We appreciate that.
How's it look?
It's looking good. I'm going to say that we're close to being completed, 82% complete. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to questions. If you think of something later, you can always email Monty with your additional information.
Great, thank you. And thank you everybody for providing us with that information. The topics that that we provided to you were come up with from the work group. So thank you for those people who are helping me with that. So some more statewide meeting logistics. Yay! I hope you all have your calendars marked for Wednesday, May 9th and Thursday, May 10th. We are less than a month away, so I can't believe it. It's getting close. With the information that you've provided during the polling, we'll finalize our agenda, and then next week an email will be sent out with some pre-meeting requests of information that we're going to need from you. Just as a reminder, the accommodations for those staying overnight are at the Embassy Suites, and the address is listed there for you. Check-in is at 4 and check-out is at noon, for those needing that information. If you're staying at the Embassy Suites, there is a free made-to-order breakfast, so we are encouraging you to take advantage of that. There will be coffee and breakfast bars provided at our venue location for those that aren't staying at the hotel or need that. Of course, there's also a nightly reception in the lobby area, which hopefully we'll be using that as well. You should have already verified and confirmed your hotel reservations with Tracy, so all of that information should be done already. For the venue, as a reminder, we are at the UNC Centera campus, and there's the address for you. It's approximately 2 miles from where the Embassy Suites are, so unless you're a good runner or bring your bike, you'll probably need to drive there, but we can, or do some carpooling, etc. Lunch will be provided both days, and again, there'll be breakfast bars and things there for our meetings. We do need something from you to share prior to the meeting. If each CCB could create a flyer or a profile of their program that includes real pictures of your building or your locations. Don't include any logos or identifying people or other characteristics. We'll be using this as part of our activities. So please try to remember to not include any logos. If you could also include on your flyer information about your EI staff size, your structure, positions, any past year accomplishments that you or your service coordinators or program has done, and any unique facts or something that you want to share about your group. These profiles can be made any way that you want and include any other information that you would like, but we would like you to get those sent to us prior to the meeting. And what we also need is your pictures sent separately also. So you can include the picture on your profile if you want, but we also need them sent separately to us prior to the statewide meeting.
In other words, Monty's got something up her sleeve.
I do. And just a reminder for TRE, you have the gnome, so don't forget to bring him or her with you. I don't know what it is. Don't forget to bring the gnome with you back to our meeting so that we can share it this year with whoever has the pleasure of taking it home. And we were having discussion earlier about who that man is in that picture because we had no idea. Well, if for those of you who were not there last year or may have left early from the statewide meeting, that is our infamous Alex Laura Trebek for our Jeopardy game. So
sometimes I just like to change it up.
Right.
Okay. So let's go on to some updates, and the first thing I'm sure everybody is anxious to hear about is an update on the early intervention evaluations. This is Laura. For now, I just want to say status quo. Nothing is changing right now. No changes that will be made to your processes of early intervention. You should just continue to assure that children are receiving their timely multidisciplinary evaluations using your current processes. But if you want more information, here actually is the bill number that talks about the Part C responsibilities of the Department of Education and the Department of Human Services. That bill is House Bill 18-1333. It has passed in both the Senate and the House, and is waiting for the governor's signature right now.
All right. Ashley Fernie is going to provide information on the QIO.
Hello, everyone. This is Ashley with QIO Updates. We have Phase 3 started implementation of the QIO this month, so we're welcoming Colorado Blue Sky, Community Options, Envision, DDRC, Horizons, and Strive. So we now have 16 of our 20 communities implementing the QIO, and everyone's busy and working hard, so thank you. This is our data from when we first started using the tool, which was October 2016 to now. We just most recently assessed January IFSPs. So we have over a year of data, and we're very excited with the results, which is why I wanted to share them on this call today. We can see that quality is increasing in all IFSP sections, and Phase 1 and 2 are scoring similarly, so we're really excited about both of those things. We also can see that the family assessment section is emerging as a front runner, so that makes sense to us based on the recent targeted TA. And we're continuing to collaborate with the Program Initiatives Unit, and we'll provide support as we identify statewide needs and as time permits. So we really encourage you to use your own results to target your internal training needs, and then we will supplement with statewide training as we can. Changes coming in July. We will be phasing out verification for Phase 1 and 2, and we will continue to verify any IFSPs that are rated 2 or higher, and we'll provide support to those communities in June to help support you through that transition, but not a whole lot will change. It's just about what we're reporting on will look a little different. And then we also will have a revised tool, most likely available in July as well. And our work group is continuing to meet monthly to help with those revisions. And I wanted to give a thank you to everyone participating in that work group. It's been a really collaborative, helpful discussion, and we're excited for the new tool. So we have Community Connections, Foothills Gateway, Imagine, Rocky Mountain Human Services, TRE, and StarPoint. So thank you all very much for your help. And then lastly, I wanted to give a shout out to Foothills Gateway. They were at or above a 2, which is acceptable, average in 3 of the 4 IFSP sections. And every single family assessment from the last month that we looked at received a rating of a 2 or higher. And their average family assessment score was above a 2. And that's the first time we've seen all 3 of those things. So congratulations, Foothills Gateway. And that's all that I have on QIO.
And you have,
We'll answer questions at the end. So Ashley Ness, if you want to provide us information on Unicorn Update.
I would love to. This is Ashley Ness, and last Wednesday we had some exciting updates to the data system. All of the updates that were introduced last Wednesday were related to end user suggestions. The updates include, we pulled out the Evaluation Assessment tab from the IFSP, so a user will be able to create an evaluation prior to creating an initial IFSP. If a child is determined not eligible for EI services, the client case will close, so close not enrolled, and the reason will be not eligible. If the child is eligible for EI services, you're going to continue on and create an initial IFSP. All information entered on the Evaluation tab will copy over to the IFSP. Some other updates that are in the Evaluation and Assessment tab. So we have min and max age ranges on the Evaluation tab. So users now have the ability to select the exact minimum age in months and the maximum age instead of a range. So this next bullet point isn't necessarily true because it does say users need to complete this section in order to save the page. We did remove the validation to require this, so users are able to go in there and fill it out without having to do it for each each evaluation. The reason why we did this is because not all of our communities are fully implemented and go for it. But look for that in the future. Other updates is the Medicaid eligible field is now on the IFSP, so this is entered on the client case and will copy over to the IFSP. And users can now resume inline editing on the client case. So our last update that we had in February, there was an update that prevented users from just double-clicking a field on the client case. Users were having to edit the page and then or select the edit button and then go directly into the field to make any adjustments. The users can now just double-click the field that they wish to update without having to go in and edit. We reordered the IFSP outcome and plan of action page columns, so the questions are a little bit different. They're not different, we've just reordered them. We are requiring an outcome status to be updated at each review. The outcome is going to default to new, and at each review, users need to go in and update the status. We added a rating key to the family assessment print PDF, so that prints off on each IFSP. And we also made the family assessment, the routines, to be easily edited, so users don't have to add a routine, save a routine, edit routine, and go back. They can just add a routine, start typing in it, quickly add another routine without having to save. Late referral dates cannot be in the future, so that is a validation rule that has been put in place. We also have a late referral checkbox. So if the referral date is within 45 days of the child's transition age, users do not need to enter a reason for why it was late. And this is for A, B, and C. Transition activities still need to occur. They're still going to pull up on the quarterly reports, but users do not need to enter a late reason. We have units drawing down on activities. So activities will accurately reflect how many units have been used and how many are remaining based on the frequency entered on the IFSP. Users will not be able to bill over the units documented on the IFSP. So this update only applies for activities that will be activities that will be created as of last Wednesday. So if the service plan, the service was entered on the IFSP as of last Wednesday, the activities will start drawing down. This is not retroactive. So we do have a report, though, that has services that have less than 4 units left. I encourage everybody to look at that report and just note when service coordinators go out and do reviews that they need to make sure that they're updating those services to accurately reflect what's really going on. We have some Medicaid validation rules. If a child is indicated as Medicaid eligible on the client case, users will only be able to bill 1 unit unless a Medicaid denial is on file. Users will indicate whether a denial is on file on the activity itself. If there is a denial, users will be able to bill normally. This only applies to speech-language pathology, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. There is a report located in the Early Intervention CCB folder called Medicaid Eligible Clients. I encourage everybody to take a look at those because this validation rule is in effect currently, and so just give yourself a little bit extra time to familiarize yourself with this prior to creating activities. An updated Unicorn user guide is available on the EI Colorado website by the close of business today. It will be there very, very shortly. We do have training videos that are going to be linked throughout each section of the user guide. All of the updates are also available on the EI Colorado website in a neat little link called Spring 2018. You can also go to the EI Colorado YouTube channel to view all of them, all of the training videos regarding or related to the unicorn. If users have suggestions, please utilize the suggestion form, and I will make sure to post that in the chat as well. So we're going to take into consideration each suggestion submitted, but we cannot guarantee the suggestion will be implemented. A reminder regarding data, third quarter data is due May 7th. We're giving a few extra days because the 5th is a Saturday. So take that Saturday to enter data. Just kidding, don't do that.
And just another reminder, if your CCD is going to be closed for breaks that are outside of typical business days or for extended periods of time, please notify Tracy as she is often receiving phone calls or inquiries and wants to be able to inform people of any closures. Okay, Laura, do you want to talk to us about?
Sure. Just a reminder, you all have received this. Tracy has sent it out. Information on the 5th Annual Early Childhood Summit to be held in Keystone, Colorado. I know that many of you have participated in our prior summit. The topic this time is going to be on leadership, and Camille Catlett will be our presenter. We've been working with her a lot, and she's talking about leadership, as you can see from the heading here, leading from the middle, influencing up, down, and sideways. So it's really going to be about how can you be an influencer, how can you be a leader, no matter where you're located or what your job is or where your structure is within an organization. This is filling up quickly. So if you haven't filled out your registration, which Tracy also sent out, please do so. One last thing. We are also funding registration scholarships again this year through EI Colorado, so you won't have any cost for registration.
Great. So let's go back. I know there's been some chats and some questions that were put in the chat, so we'll take the time right now to go back and try and answer those for you. Let's see, where's the first one? Okay, so Beth Scully stated that, and this is regarding the House Bill 1333, that I heard this may be moving into a study bill before signature. What would that mean? And Christy, can you speak to that?
Yes, I can. That's a good question, Beth. So it's kind of complicated, but there's two pieces that are happening. The first piece was through the whole legislative session where we had funding added to cover early intervention evaluations, which previously we have not had a line for. And so now within our long bill, which tells us what funding categories we have to spend within early intervention, we have a separate long bill item called early intervention evaluation. And $2.5 million was approved to put in that line. What goes along with that line is a request for information, which will be due in the fall. And some of the questions, this is not verbatim, but some of the questions we have to answer with some specific timelines for when that information will be due is around the actual cost of evaluations, a pilot for locations and information from families and providers, both about whether evaluations in the home are a better experience for families than an evaluation in a center-based place. So that's one piece of it. And again, I'm not providing every single detail for either one of these, but just a general overview. Then separate from the funding is then we had to go through the bill writing process. And what the bill writing process does is it drafts a bill that talks about what we need to happen. And so the bill, for the most part, amends already existing statute, Colorado statute. And what it does is it essentially moves the authority for early intervention evaluations under the Department of Human Services, and it removes the references to who is actually conducting the evaluation. And so it amends statute so that I believe it says the entities who conduct evaluations rather than an administrative unit. And so those are the first steps to move the authority back to the Department of Human Services and remove the obligation of one particular entity to do the evaluation. It was said on mic during the hearing, microphone, and that's our little term, said on mic during the hearing that it was a study bill, but what that means is a part of the bill is a pilot. A part of the bill is to provide third-party arbitration between the Department of Human Services and the Department of Education, and as part of that is where the quote-unquote study lives, because we're going to be looking at the costs, we're going to be looking at the responsibilities and developing a transition plan for how the activities will be moved over. The study information will be used to present to the legislation during the next legislative session to talk about the actual cost and how much money we actually will need in order to conduct evaluation. Because right now, everybody believes that early intervention evaluations are underfunded, but we have no idea what the actual cost is. That was long-winded, but hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. The next question, I believe, is for you, Ashley Fernie, regarding from Susan. Can you summarize the recommended tool changes for the QIO?
Yeah, so with the work group, we're reviewing the checkbox items that we have on the QIO to determine if we need more clarification around why they're an expectation, or if we need to tweak it to better align with the IFSP instructions and what has been changed during the Go For It process. So we're reviewing those, changing the wording, switching up a couple of them, and then also just making a few minor adjustments to the tool to make it a little more user-friendly. But the way the tool works itself and the use of it won't change. It's just some of the content within it will look a little bit different. And then we also revised the results format that's going out to CCBs, which you should have noticed this last month as a new format. And that was based on feedback to make the results a little more useful for CCBs.
Great. Okay, I believe this other question for you, Ashley Ness. What about kids that are eligible but don't proceed with services? Do you have to create an IFSP, or can we just do the evaluation and assessment page and close?
Hey everyone, this is Amanda Sutton. Ashley and I are going to tag team the unicorn question, so I'm going to take this one. So it depends on where you are at in the evaluation eligibility and IFSP process. If a family at the point that you have determined eligibility declines Part C at that point, and you have not moved on to an IFSP meeting, then yes, you would go ahead and close that case. You would not have to create an IFSP. Now, if you're saying that the family doesn't want to proceed with services and you're at the point you're at an IFSP meeting and the family has declined the services that you were discussing at that time, then yes, you will need to create an IFSP and you'll go ahead and close that and indicate that appropriate closed reason.
Perfect. Okay. Next question. Right now, telehealth providers for OT and PT have to apply for an EPSDT exception. If they have not yet heard back from the exception, how do these units get entered for utilization?
So Whitney, so these activities would still get entered with one unit, and then once that denial is on file, you can go back and bill the remaining 3 units or however many units you need to bill for that service. And really quick, this is Amanda. I just wanted to add on, the reason that we're allowing for this is that we would expect that whomever is billing to Medicaid, so if it's either the provider or some CCBs are billing to Medicaid on behalf of the providers, it's because we should only be paying for at the state those things that are not billed to Medicaid. So we are allowing that one unit to account for that time that you may have to receive that denial. But at the point that you have, like Ashley had said, you have that denial, you can go ahead and bill the state for the remaining units.
This is Christy, and for those that aren't familiar with what Whitney is saying around applying for an EPSDT exception, that's actually OTs and PTs are applying for an EPSDT exception to have Medicaid cover telehealth services because that's the only way it's covered at this point. They've been successful so far, and what our hope is that the more providers that apply for this exception will result in Medicaid changing some of their rules so that we actually can bill directly for telehealth services and not have to go through this roundabout way of doing it. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then if you have any questions about that specifically, you can give Beth or Laura a call.
Okay. One more question, Ashley. Could you define what you mean by denial? Is it the claims that DXC portal denies?
You want me to answer
Yeah.
that?
I'm going to pass it over to Christy.
Christy, could you define what you mean?
Okay. So what we're talking about around a denial of Medicaid paying for a service for a child who's enrolled in Medicaid is that if it's an allowable service and the child is enrolled in Medicaid, there are going to be very few reasons why Medicaid won't cover that service. One of the reasons might be because they have a secondary insurance. That's really the main reason. I know there's a couple of other rarities that happen, but what we're talking about is that Medicaid, you have attempted to bill Medicaid and Medicaid has denied the claim. We know that, because we can't just make the assumption up front that Medicaid has denied or we're not even going to bother, we actually are required to attempt to get the money from Medicaid, have them pay for the service, have that denial, and then you can bill. You don't need to submit it, but it needs to be on record and you need to indicate in the data system that it's there.
Okay. And Whitney had one more question too. Do you have any contact information for providers who have had the exemption accepted?
Beth has that information. Yeah. I do not know that, but you can absolutely shoot Beth an email or give her a call and she can give you that information.
Great. Any other questions from anyone that you can think of? All right, everyone. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on our TA call. We will gather that information from the polling, and we are excited to see you all who are coming to our statewide meeting in less than a month. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.